So in the next session, hopefully you'll be able, as an audience, as a listener, you'll be able to take away some ideas, some techniques, some tactics perhaps on what you hear on stage, and perhaps apply that in your own world from next week onwards. Okay, so what I'll do once again, I'll introduce the panelists, and then the moderator that will again try to make sense of everything, putting it all together, and helping you as an audience understand what's actually going on. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Managing Partner at Leap Ventures, Mr. Henri Assali. Also the MEVP Managing Partner, Mr. Ehsan Jawad. We also have from Souk.com the CEO, which is Mr. Ronaldo Mushawar. And also the COO at Akhtaboot, Mr. Ibrahim Siksik. We have one person. You're not all these people. You're just one person, I'm sure, and I'm sure the others will join us. Are the others here? Okay, and once again, your moderator taking care of this panel. Might be a good idea if you sit over there, perhaps.
Ibrahim, yeah.
I don't know whether the others are coming.
Come up.
We should change the name.
Thanks, Peter, for the intro. I spotted Ronaldo earlier. Yeah, there he is. Is that right? Yeah, that's him. So we have our other panelists joining.
Is Mr. Ishan?
Okay, they're both here. Excellent.
Okay. And also your moderator, to introduce your moderator, I'm sure many people know this gentleman. I'm sure you certainly know the accelerator here in Amman, in Jordan. From Oasis 500, the CEO, Mr. Faisal Haki.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for attending, first of all. I mean, this is the after-lunch graveyard slot, so not the best time to talk about growth hacking. But nonetheless, I think we have a colorful panel amongst us, and I think we'll engage in a nice, engaging discussion with the audience too. So maybe I'll talk about the growth hacker par excellence that we had today, Mr. Donald Trump, the guy who growth hacked his way into presidency. I heard a nice, a nice sort of analysis of what happened today. One guy said that Franklin D. Roosevelt made his way into presidency because of the radio. JFK made his way because of TV. And Obama, the first term, he came into presidency because of the internet. And Trump came into presidency because he was the villain on a lot of reality shows. And apparently, in the age of social media, the villain is the guy who succeeds, which is why he ended up into presidency. So I'll start with that. I'll leave you guys to talk a bit about yourselves, maybe quick intros each. I mean, I think most of the audience know who you are. Henry, we'll start with you.
Thank you.
شغال Mike?
Now it should be. No. 1, 2. There we go. Okay. I'm Henri Assali. I'm a partner at Leap Ventures, a growth stage venture capital company out of Lebanon. I used to be an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I started a company in the first wave of web companies called bizrate.com and Shopzilla. And I've been doing many startups since. That's it.
Raheem?
Okay. Is this on? Hello?
Yeah.
No, it is.
Okay, so my name is Ibrahim Siksik, and I'm the CEO of Akhtaboot.com. You guys know Akhtaboot.com is Jordan's leading job portal. But before that, I started a couple of companies before, one of them in Jordan as well, called Crystal Call, which was Jordan's first contact center. And I think I know a lot of you here as well. So.
Thanks.
My name is Ronaldo Mushawar. I'm the co-founder of Souk.com. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Yeah. I'm Ronaldo Mushawar. I'm the co-founder of Souk.com. We co-founded the company with Samih and Hussam, who were the co-founder of Maktub. We're in a way startup, but we're quite big today. But we have kept a lot our entrepreneurship and startup culture. So in the last 3 years, We've launched 4 and invested in 2 other companies. We have a logistic last mile company called Q Express, a payment company that's quite leading in its space called Payfort, just won the FinTech Company of the Year yesterday. We just invested in InstaShop, which is a hyperlocal grocery. We have Helpit, which is a marketplace for services. Wing, which is a marketplace for logistics. So while we are growing the business as maybe a more mature phase and we've been able to raise money, I'm a big believer, even our countries run, we have a country manager here, Salim, who's from Jordan running our Saudi team. Each kind of country runs as a team. And we're a big believer that you need that drive as an entrepreneur, even in a bigger structure, to continuously maybe cannibalize yourself or grow fast.
Right. Thank you, Ronaldo. Hassan?
Yes, my name is Hassan Jawad. I'm been in the digital space for about 16 years now. It's a long time.
Right.
And so I started a company called Zawiya, which is a business information company, which we ended up selling to Reuters. And since then, I've been investing in startups, and recently been a partner, a general partner actually in MEVP.
Right.
Investing in early stage to Series A startups. Actually, we have one big investment here in Al-Tibbi, which is a healthcare telemedicine.
We know them well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, excellent. So I think we're a bit short on time, so we'll try and focus on the main key takeaways from the discussion. Maybe I'll start with a sort of a concise definition of what growth hacking is. I mean, if you break it down, growth is obvious. It's the true compass of North. Companies need to grow. They need to grow. They need to grow in revenues and users and market traction and net profit, obviously. So that's the simple part. The hard part is the hacking part, which is more or less doing stuff that is out of the norm, out of the ordinary, stuff that isn't done the typical way growth is usually achieved. So if you look at corporations, what corporations do, these are companies that typically pay for growth. Okay, so that growth is directly linked to a budget that a company has. And that budget is driven by certain targets that companies need to achieve. And I think the term growth hacking is synonymous with startups and the uncertainty that startups need to live through. So that obviously there aren't that big of a budget for a startup to spend on growth. And that is where the hacking part comes in and where the thinking in an unconventional way comes in, which is a lot of what guerrilla marketing is about. So maybe I'll pick your brains on who you think are maybe the best examples of growth hackers in our modern time in the Arab region, companies that you've either worked at, invested in, or looked at or transacted with, that you think are great examples of growth hackers. I'll start with that, and maybe give a few highlights of where that brilliance came into play.
Okay, so I worked at thebizzle.com. Thebizzle is a leading classifieds website in the UAE, and I was there from when they were really, really small, and now they obviously became a huge enterprise. And the things that we did to growth hacking is, I think we were given a lot of room to experiment with a lot of different ideas. We tried to have a mixture of offline plus online. End of the day, we wanted adoption. So we really tried many things. And literally went down to talking to people, getting them to download or use the app, or actually at that time there was no app. And having people just to touch the product was our biggest barrier. So once we discovered that once people had it, it was a much easier sell. So that was, I think, the enlightenment there. But also keep in mind that we had different markets, so different markets reacted differently. So that was, honestly, we saw the hockey stick growth from trying different things. So this is where this is what I saw from at least the business.
Right, right. Ronaldo, I know for a fact that in e-commerce there are several metrics that the business looks at, and the conversion rates are obviously one of the most important. Maybe you can tell us a bit about how Souq managed to growth hack their conversion rates.
So I mean, I'll just talk about a little bit when you don't have the resources, and then maybe I can give some examples. So I remember when we launched Souq, we really didn't want to have an auction model on our site. We knew kind of like eBay is not doing well, but traffic wasn't coming. And one of the things we did was, and we didn't have any marketing money, obviously. So one of the things we did was with every bid, you would get an SMS and drives the visit. And cost per SMS was like 1 cent. So you would do a cost per visit at 1 cent. And cost to bid on a keyword that we wanted was like 15 cents. So model, we actually ended up retiring it. That's the word I like to use for auctions. So that was one. Second, we knew also we wanted to touch and feel and operate categories properly, but also we had no capital tier 212 when Naspers invested in Souq properly. So at that stage, we launched a marketplace model. So we made our vendors do the work. It was not the perfect experience. But if you ask me, the two key elements to growth hacking at an early stage, you cannot lose track of your product. You can do MVPs and make sure like some things are not fully automated. You can do maybe manual work at the back end, but what customers see should look good. So the investing there, 1-2 people in the front end and the product is very quite important early. And then for us, Maktoub and others were all form of partnerships. So we did a lot of partnership. I remember with auction, we had even a partnership with Royal Jordanian. Imagine us going to Royal Jordanian and selling tickets that you can auction. They actually don't auction. They don't have fairs for auction. And we worked and hacked our way through that. They got the deal, and the site went down. The minute the deals were live, we had 2,000 tickets to the US starting at 1 JD, and we became...
Yeah, I remember that actually.
And we went down, literally, and we didn't know. We had all the tickets running at the same time, and the auctions all closed at 11 p.m., and just the site went down, and RJ was calling us, but they were happy. Somehow, at the end, they got a lot of exposure and traffic. So we've done a lot of crazy things to hack our way through. I think that's key. Today, when it comes to conversion, we have a person here called Rani Dababne. Maybe you guys can meet him. He's right there. His fame to Souq is his conversion, day in, day out. He's a business partner, so we don't look at him as the technical people. His team is our partner. Actually, we have no business owner. He's the business. So we make the engineers own a business metrics and continuously work with us to develop it. So,
so maybe we'll ask Rami later on what tools he uses to get to that conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean,
the Halo conversion rate
is the best in the region.
Yeah, Henry, maybe tell us a bit about what you've experienced in the businesses that you've done in your fund. What were sort of examples of success when it came to making omelets with no eggs?
Yeah, before you start your growth hacking piece, where you're trying to accelerate your growth, you have to look at the friction in your model. If your model has a lot of friction, however much you try to push, well, that friction is friction. So you're going to be working very hard for pretty much nothing. So you have to look at your model first and see where's the friction. So as you were talking, when you try many things, you're trying them to understand where the issues are and where the complications lie. And okay, what does it take to do this? Well, the user has to go through 7 steps to do something. And if you're going to try to acquire users at this stage, and the users need 7 steps to do something, you've wasted your money.
Right.
Oh, so the key here is to first really understand where the friction is. Take marketplaces, for example. What's the friction? You need to get users and merchants, let's say, together at biz rate. Even 20 years ago, it was, or let's say, well, it was pretty decent sized about 15 years ago. As we were growing the marketplace, we had to figure out how do you do this? Well, you do it by getting every player in your tiny little ecosystem the value that they're looking for. So merchants need to have clients, users need to have merchants. So you can't just start by saying, I'm going to be big. It doesn't work in a marketplace. You start by growing one side, which grows the other side, which grows the other side, which grows the other side.
Yeah.
So that's how you have to grow. So to me, the word hacking is a misnomer. You just have to understand what's going on. You have to see what the friction is, and you have to remove the friction and give real added value. And at that point, it starts rolling on its own. You take a puck on ice. You only need a little push, and it goes all the way to the end.
Right. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the interesting concepts in hacking is the way hackers look at funnels. I mean, they look at them in an inverted way. They typically start looking at friction that happens at the very end of that funnel and build their way up, because these are the people or the clients that have reached to that point, okay? And this is where the tipping point typically, or the falling off point typically happens, and they fall out of that funnel. So, for example, if you're an e-commerce business, you would look at the page that comes before pushing that payment button and start backwards. And that's probably the best way to sort of hack your way up to a better conversion rate. Hassan, would you like to share some war stories on hacking?
Yeah, well, I think this is a technical question, right? So there's many answers to that. And we have to differentiate between what's marketing and what's growth hacking, right? So, I mean, in the Zawiya days, we did a lot of marketing sort of campaigns that were very successful and that worked amazingly, but that's not really growth hacking. So, or guerrilla marketing, as you mentioned, it's distinctly different. I mean, growth hacking is about engineering growth into the product. So the product itself has to be rebuilt, if you like, or redesigned, or rewired so that it grows by itself.
Right.
Right. So it's a very technical area, actually. I mean, so I'm not going to be able to give you examples because it's I think beyond this forum. So the biggest area where the product will be able to grow by itself is if you could leverage the community that the product is designed for. In other words, basically you do social, some sort of a social angle into the product. So removing friction, for example, you know, and if you have frictions in the conversion here and there, that's not okay. That's going to give you a little jump in your numbers. But that's not going to give you accelerated growth, right? Which is, you know, when you're talking about growth hacking, you're talking about sort of getting into an exponential curve.
Absolutely.
So it's different than
right.
Yeah.
You know, the term itself, you know, has probably been coined only recently, growth hacking, but the practice has been around for quite some time. I mean, SEO is probably the first form of growth hacking that online businesses typically experience. A/B testing is another. There are a lot of companies that have masterminded and sort of fine-tuned these practices. But then again, the interesting thing about these is that there is no one good tool for any business, and there is no one tool that is, you know, continually working for all businesses. And this is why, you know, businesses are trying different tools at different times for different products and different audiences. One of the interesting types that, you know, I've come across is content marketing, and I think content marketing is one area where the people pushing out that content need to look at content as a product itself. I mean, it has to answer a real question and offer a real answer, obviously, and it has to be a solution of some sort to a real problem. And typically, it's not associated with the product or the company itself, so it's not a direct sell. You know, it's a very tactile kind of indirect way of pushing or promoting that brand. Brahim, you're shaking your head.
No, just...
You want to tell us about content marketing?
Okay, so Akhtabut right now is actually, how do I say this? We're changing our strategy. Because in the beginning it was just very basic content that we were posting, but now I think we want to bring a lot of relevancy to what we're trying to offer to actually job seekers. But not only job seekers, we also have to, you know, how do I say this? Make sure that the actual employer as well understands the full cycle. So it's not about writing better articles or tips or how to get a job, what to do in an interview. It's a lot more than that. It just, we're trying to kind of develop a behavior for, like something beyond personas, because we see a lot of people asking a lot of questions that are not relevant to what we offer. So we want to open up our horizon to actually offer more than what we're doing right now.
Right, right. I think another interesting part that I've come across when it came to, hacking growth in certain areas that were really trailblazing their industries at the time is the story behind what YouTube did. And sort of, the way YouTube thought of their product is like it's the answer to boredom. When people are bored, they go to YouTube. And the way they did that is they looked at the different habit-forming aspects of that product or that service, and they sort of infused it into the layout, the length, the suggestions, the machine learning that YouTube does, and the habit-forming influences that they can build into their platform. Ronaldo, obviously, Souq obviously deploys a lot of these tactics, these habit-forming tactics. I can tell that if you buy a product on Souq, you automatically get pushed a lot of other products based on what previous users have done. What other habit-forming tools do you use?
I think the key is your data warehouse. So to get to that stage, there's a lot of things you can do to try to target things to user behaviors based on what they do on the site. Just take that like one step back. We spent last year doing a lot of work into how we capture the data across, especially now that you have mobile, web app, right? You kind of have 3 different experiences going at the same time. It's usually the same user, and just investing a bit more into tools, into your data warehouse. The first stage is capturing that data properly as best as you can, trying to identify the user through either direct or indirect identifiers. So if he's logged in, you have a direct. If he's not logged in, through other means, maybe his social links and so forth, and then just build productionizing that data. First, you take the data, you build analytics, so you're able to do a lot of reporting, so you kind of, this is what's going on, this is where the friction area. But I think where you start seeing some benefit or payback coming is when then you take that into a production mode where it becomes a bit more live. So A, build the data warehouse, B, start looking at analytics out of that warehouse to make sure actually it does make sense, because if you capture the wrong data structures, you could go in the wrong way. And then the third is, in phases, introduce production data, recommendation, emails that are triggered based on events, items you buy, items you bought before. Example now, with the Note 7 issue with Samsung, we are able to target everyone who had a Note 5 to 6 with large screen phones, because we know they might be in the market and the replacement's not available. So you try to build these based on the data. But I think the key is to do all that. That sounds like everyone says, do you have a recommendation? That's like the end of the journey. The beginning was just invest a lot and be patient as a team to get that data in and then have it meaningful.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the reason you do this is, this allows you to build trust around the brand. It allows you to personalize the relationship between, Souq as a platform for e-commerce and the users.
I think the key as we go forward with mobile, right? I think of it as the only platform a consumer use. Ignore the web, but still it's present. To stay on the mobile phone, you probably use 10 to 12 apps. You need a frequency of purchase, a frequency of use.
Right.
If you're using a food delivery company, you use it quite often, so you keep the app. If you're using a transport company, you keep. So for us, it's quite important that we are relevant when it comes to shopping, and we stay. The way you stay, you have to stay relevant. You have to have a dialogue with the audience or the user, and it can't be too messy. It has to be quite personalized for you to be able to achieve results. So the driver for us is on mobile, what can you do to keep your app on the phone?
Right,
that's really, and then you go from there, can you drive purchases, lifetime, all the other numbers.
And that's a particular challenge for e-commerce, because I think I once heard that a typical e-commerce transaction usually happens after the 6th or 7th attempt. And it's typically not on the same platform or screen.
Yeah.
So you open it up on your laptop or handset or tablet, and then you buy it on your mobile, and the decision to buy obviously there are a lot of sporadic decisions, but the ones that are educated typically happen after the 5th or 6th attempt, something like that.
Pre-mobile, that is all true. From what we see, post-mobile, when you go into the app on a mobile, you're so relevant to what you're trying to do. So you might be with a friend trying to check a TV, or someone tells you about a product, or a lady is like wants a fashion, so she gets a look. Here's the new look. So I think on mobile you could do a bit better, but I think in general you have to work to convert your customers. Yes.
Right. Henry, Ihsan, maybe a question to both of you. I think one of the main challenges that face startups in our region is the ability to access markets beyond the ones that they have direct control or access to. So one of the problems that we face at Oasis is that most companies look at Jordan as a test market. It's a market where you launch your product, you build a certain profile around the people who want to use that product or service, you learn a bit, you test a bit, but then the real traction happens elsewhere. So these growth hacking techniques are usually used as a leverage to leapfrog into other markets. What are your takes on using those techniques? For example, if you have a company that is based in Amman or in Lebanon and wants to sell into Riyadh and Jeddah and Dubai and Doha and all the high spending metropolitan centers in the GCC, where have you seen examples or tools of success that have allowed companies to leapfrog into other markets without physically being present in those markets?
I think that growing geographically is not a matter of hacking it. It's a matter of proper operations. Unless you're a completely virtual thing or you're an app or something like this, and sometimes you've got to do things that we haven't talked about. One thing that we haven't talked about, which is the oldest growth hacking technique ever, which is handling pricing. 2 examples. One example is one of our portfolio companies does a 24/7 energy storage and management solution for weak grid environments, so where the electrical grid sucks, where you have many power cuts, etc. And they give you 24/7 power locally with solar panels or anything you need. And these guys sell their solution for $50,000. Okay. Although a sale is very quick, even if it's that expensive, because it's very useful. One of the things they noticed is in order to shrink the sales cycle to almost nothing and make a very quick sale is to not sell the product for $50,000, but to sell the electricity. Mm-hmm. These guys, because the client knows the electricity. Another example, which is very, very obvious, which is the true, what we want to call growth hacking, but it's just basic venture capital thinking, if you want, is my former partner at BizRate had a company called Flipagram. And Flipagram, when he got it, had a couple of 100,000 users maybe, and they were selling the app for 99 cents. What he did, he simply got it to be free with a Flipagram wording on the video that was generated, a watermark on the video. And instantly, the app started gathering millions and millions of users, and he raised $50 million from VCs, and he kept growing that way. So it's pretty basic, guys. Just, the first thing you need to look at is money. How much does it cost? You want to grow this MENA ICT, drop the price from $700 to $50.
Yeah,
that's a good suggestion to the organizers. Okay.
No, I mean, it's true. I'd agree with that. We invested in a company last year, which it's based in Abu Dhabi, of all places. And, the biggest user base or the biggest market that it has is in the States.
Right.
So, actually, the biggest 3 markets are, the US, UK, and Australia. Completely sort of knocked us off. We never thought we could invest in a tech company based in the region that is sort of doing business globally. But the way they did it is they built a very high-quality software that would cost about $100 a month to rent, or the SaaS model, and then they just put it out for free. And so you had all these businesses in the US just downloading it and using it, and actually being dependent on it. So basically, this software helps salons and sort of massage places and so on to run their business. It's a scheduling software. So suddenly you have millions of dollars now going through this software, through millions of, well, not millions, sorry, thousands of vendors out there, thousands of small businesses. And the amount of data they're getting is just tremendous. So just by tweaking the business model slightly, you can grow definitely beyond your borders, which is critical, I mean, especially for VCs. I mean, you have to grow. None of these countries that we're in, including Saudi, by the way, are big enough for a VC investment, unfortunately.
Right.
So we have to go beyond your borders.
Okay, I mean, I think we're tight on time, so I'm going to leave like 10 minutes for the audience to make questions, but maybe have some closing remarks. I think I'd like to hear your advice, particularly to startups, since that's our business. Maybe give some advice to startups on where to look for growth and how to hack growth, regardless of the type of business or service that they're offering. If you have some sort of generic guidelines to give them. The ones that I personally sort of advocate are ones that are database. So I typically ask my companies if they have analytics, if they use analytics, if they collect data, if they use heat maps, that sort of, those sorts of numbers. And then I ask them to get user feedback. So in addition to the data and the information that the data gives you, you actually have to talk to your clients and get a human interaction with them to listen what they need, what they like, what they don't like, and then do a lot of testing. Okay, so obviously whether you're testing the product itself, never settle for one type of product or one type of channel. And then again, when hacking the growth itself, never rely on a single channel or a single platform or a single method of disseminating your product and announcing it to the public. Henry, we'll start by you, and if you have sort of an umbrella tip on how to growth hack a startup business.
Yeah, as you said, you really have to understand your users, your product, how they're using it, where the problems are before you go for it. And when you're going to go for it, like on every channel and try to grow your business, now that it's clean and the friction is gone and you're going crazy for it, first go for the cheap stuff.
Right.
For the really cheap stuff and learn how to do it, and you're going to go. And another, although there's one thing, one tip I want to give you is, if you try to buy traffic, and you're spending a little money to understand how the traffic is bought, don't assume that little spend is going to stay the same. So your ratios are going to stay the same as you expand dramatically. That is not going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's very accurate when it comes to customer acquisition. I mean, I've seen customer acquisition numbers that continue to drop, and there's a tipping point that has nothing to do with the volume of transactions happening, where it goes up back again. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. Brahim.
Just to add to Henry's, I totally believe that, especially for a startup, when you start up a company, you're trying to fix a problem, and this is, and with that, you really need to discover who are these people that you're trying to fix this issue to. So this is this is how I've always thought of when I started the couple of companies that I've did. So this is a very simple formula at least for me, was just A, know who your customer is, and B, what is the problem you're trying to fix. So,
right. Back to basics.
Very basic.
I think for me, just test fast and fail fast, and just keep trying.
That's excellent advice.
And then just continue. Partnerships is a great way not to spend your own marketing. figure out what partners you can have that have customers, and it's safe, because marketing is quite a big expense. So continue to explore local partnership. You are relevant. You can tweak your product to make sure that you can do it. Bigger companies are not able to do that, so just continue.
Absolutely. You know, that kind of thinking is quite scarce, because we see a lot of startups that, you know, they want to do it on their own, and partnerships are typically, you know, at the back burner. It's not something that they think about, and they typically think of them more as competition rather than partnerships.
It's hard because it does deviate you from the main maybe vision that you have, but
right.
It allows you to grow, and you know, you have to kind of balance.
But
I understand the challenge for someone who wants to go to B and then this partnership wants to push them to C.
Absolutely.
That could be a challenge.
Absolutely. Hassan will
for very early stage companies, we tell them to stop spending any money on marketing and put together a growth group, actually. You know, like even if it's one person or two people, to and not give them any marketing budget, so that they go back to the product and they figure a way to tweak it so that it self-propagates.
I agree with you, and I think this is where it becomes a bit confusing for startups, because, you know, unlike a typical business, you don't a startup cannot settle with 5% year-on-year growth. They need to do like 100% month-on-month growth. Right. And unless they achieve 100% month-on-month growth, that second round of rounding would never come. So they're being pulled in different directions. They need to focus on the product. They need to focus on, you know, the metrics of the business, and at the same time, they need to achieve.
But it's amazing what you could do when you tell them, or you tell whoever is responsible, that you don't have marketing budget.
Yeah.
Right. So they suddenly they start rewiring this thing in a way that it could self-propagate, including potentially partnering up as well. Right?
Absolutely. Thanks,
Hassan. Magic happens.
I think we have time for about 3-4 questions. We have a lady in the middle.
Today is my day as a failure startup. No, I have actually 2 questions to ask. First one is it has to do with the business model, because in the Arab world there's I think something common with these startups. We have a problem with getting people to payment gateways. For example, if I have a marketplace and I'm trying to get people to buy through my site directly, and I have problem with people converting people because of the payment method. People in the Arab world are still hesitant, especially in Jordan or even in our Middle East region, using the credit cards, for example, as payment. They hesitate, so they come to the product, they look at the product, they visit it several times, but when it comes to actual buying, they hesitate, not because they don't trust the product, but just because they don't want, either they don't have credit cards, or because they are hesitant to take the risk. So this is one thing. Second thing has to do with the converting customers. I also face some problems of people, the traffic is high, but the conversion is very low. And I'm trying to understand why the conversion is low. First, as I said, it has to do with the business model, maybe, because people hesitate to buy online, still in the Arab world. Second problem has to do with people trusting a new startup company. I need the credibility, I need to be trusted, so that means a lot of marketing and branding budget. But as a new startup, I still need, I cannot afford to do this, especially if I'm self-investing startup. And you just mentioned that don't put a lot of money on marketing. I'm trying to use organic way of growth, like investing more in the SEOs, and it helped a lot, but still I cannot grow further because of this issue of trusting a new product, trusting a new platform. If you have any comment or any advice to give to
Thanks, Hanan, thanks. Henry, I think this falls squarely in what you labeled as friction, right? I'll let you answer that one.
How should I say that? You know, don't try to swim underwater without breathing apparatus. You're trying to do the impossible. Do the possible instead. You're going for the worst category, the worst business model in the region, and you're complaining, rightly so, about it. Don't do it. Do something else. In 10 years, you'll be able to sell online in the Middle East without a problem. Today, you can't do it. Go do something else.
That is raw. Any other questions over there? Gentleman on the back. Thanks, Henry.
Hello, Rajai Haddad. I'm a social media consultant and trainer. I have a question, probably not directly related to that topic, but you mentioned content. And I'm noticing that you have Souq.com and you have Akhtabut. So I think 90% of what you're doing is content, or what you're having on your websites is content. So how do you see today's social media accuracy of content on your websites, and how can you guarantee this accuracy of content for the end user? Because I might just share something on Souq.com or Akhtabut about my profile or about the thing that I'm trying to sell, but it's not accurate content. And accuracy, as you know, it might be misleading for the offline and online media and the end user. I mean, we were talking about content is the king. I believe that content is not the king. Context and accuracy of content is the king. So how do you see today's social media content on your websites, and how can you measure its accuracy and control the accuracy?
I think you should.
So at Souq, we have two metrics. We have something called qualitative and something called quantitative. So qualitative metrics are actual data points that we do track to figure out how accurate is what the seller is listing versus what the buyers are getting. And those are things that we measure based on our data warehouse that are very defined. We've agreed these are good KPIs and we track them. That gives you 80% of accuracy, but still there is a qualitative. So then we go and try to come up with a qualitative measure that depends a lot on user feedback to kind of say, okay, to close the loop also, not to be only stringent on numbers, what is some qualitative measures, number of pictures, background of photos. There's qualitative measures that we can maybe, what users are saying, and then we kind of combine them into some kind of a quality score that we try to keep, and then the ones that are below standard, we have a content team to help them. The ones that are above standard, we look at them and copy them and try to figure out how these guys are scoring so well. So I think you can't do it all subjectively and you can't do it all mathematically. You just kind of figure out what works for you as a model.
And I think, can I add something? Yeah. We also, because we're a job website, so we also control some of our content by, we verify everything that's posted on our site. So we do a lot of moderation. So that's another way we can verify the validity of the actual content. So this is something that we have to do, because then it will be out of control, especially when it comes to jobs.
So maybe we'll take one or two more questions. The gentleman at the back.
Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to meet with Hassan today. Hassan is a very old friend of mine. All of what I heard here is either technical or financial. Nothing is mentioned about culture. And all about, when you talk about startups, it's all about changes. We have a very popular proverb which says, Allah la ghayr alayna, which means by default, by culture, we are against startups' approaches. So anybody has any kind of cultural obstacles that they face would like to highlight?
Ibrahim, I'm pretty sure you have something about that in your business.
Okay, yes, obviously you always want, especially in a startup environment, you have to look for people that you can actually play with, essentially. So in a startup environment where things are not very, in the beginning, not very processized, not very documented, so you really need to find that right fit for you and right fit for the startup. I've experienced this in my startups as well, where we I usually, well, my rule is always hire happy people, always, hire people who have families, because they were very, very productive, and they came in and they built the culture of the actual company as well. So this is something that, it is a very big part of growth hacking, because your team, you really need to say, you really need that team that gels together. So we had a lot of fancy terms, even at Dubizzle and Naspers, stuff that maybe I can't say on stage right now, but the sentiment was you really need to hire a lot of people who believe in what you're trying to do as well. So I think that's the only things I can tell right now without.
Thanks, Brahim. If no more questions, we're going to wrap up. We have the gentleman at the back.
So I know that you all have seen a lot of e-commerce startups or e-commerce mature companies. Do you play any role on how to prevent dumping of low quality technology in your market, which is literally ruining your whole economy?
Anyone in particular to answer that question?
Of course, for soup.com.
Okay, cool. So we believe in direct factory to consumer models, and what we like to see is that technology is available to everyone, as accessible and at a low cost, and we have a spectrum of products from the very premium, but we see a lot of growth coming from affordable, high-spec products, and we push hard to get these two. We have few brands that we've incubated on our platform that do in the millions of devices a year, and we're very happy that we cherish these two as success stories as entrepreneurs on our own platform.
Thanks, Ronaldo, for answering the off-topic question. Please join me in thanking our panelists. Thank you all for taking the time, and thank you for attending. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A great panel there. Thank you very much. In fact, Henry is actually on his way right now into a car. Oh, there he goes, into a car. His bags are packed, straight to the airport, and he's out of here. Right, we move on now onto our next panel discussion here this afternoon. So we're going to move across over onto smart cities. So cities of the future, basically. So we're going to look at how global and affordable digital infrastructure can actually help the urban services industry to develop innovative solutions to solve complex urban problems. And there are so many of them at the moment, and so many cities are facing these challenges every single year. So I will now introduce all the panelists. If they can come to the stage right now, I'll introduce them right now for you. So we have, first of all, Executive Director and CEO of Qatar the Mobility Innovative Center, and that is Dr. Adrian Abu Daya. We also have the urban planner and scholar from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Mr. Fabio Duarte. Also the chairman of the board of the King Hussein Business Park right here, Dr. Moyad Saman. And we also have from GSMA as well, Miss Aruna Sinisi Vasan, and also from Nexigen Advisory Group, Ahmed Danat. Please forgive me for the names if I don't pronounce them correctly. I'm in fact British. Maybe some people look at me and you might think I'm from Jordan. I'm not. In fact, it's very interesting fact. Looking at the tweets, very interesting indeed. I'm looking at the tweets, and it's great that so many people here are sharing lots of comments, lots of views, photographs as well. But there was actually one person in the room that tweeted when he heard my British accent and said, a British accent, how colonial. Well, that person, I do apologize for my British accent, well, basically because I am British. Right, that person knows who he is, and I know who that person is as well. Right, we move on now. Again, so the moderator for this session is the CEO and co-founder of All Cell Technologies LLC, Mr. Said Al-Halash.
Very good pronouncing my name. It's very difficult. So I want to start by thanking you all. It's really, this is tough time. It's coffee time. But I really want to thank Peter for his energy. Peter has kept us awake all day, and Muhammad and the rest of the Intaj team. Can we give them some applause? They've been working hard all day. So I made a deal with Muhammad. If I can finish in 45 minutes, he's going to buy me a fancy dinner tonight. So I'm going to share it with the panel. So what we're going to do is a little bit fast-paced. So I talked to the moderators to keep you up. We're going to do quick follow-up sessions, and I'll let the moderator take most of the time. We'll leave at least 10, 15 minutes for questions. But we have a quiz at the end of the day. So if you win that quiz, if you answer that quiz, you'll win a prize that Muayyad promised for one of the people here. So we'll start, we're going to just start from here, Adnan, and we'll let everybody introduce themselves in a way, in the context of what they do, on how it's related to smart cities. Smart cities is a big, complicated topic. Probably we can spend a session about each topic. What we're going to do today, we have a very good panel here of experts who've done things. We're going to ask them to share with us not just theory, but at least what things can we do here in Jordan. So Adnan, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Saeed. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adnan Abu Daya from Qatar. Just to let you know what I do, I'm CEO of QMIC, Qatar Mobility Innovation Center, which is, frankly speaking, a unique institution probably in the region that was founded in 2009. And what we do is we focus on large-scale R&D activities and try to translate them into digital businesses. So we have a team of about 65 people, which is really a combination of technology, software development, market delivery, focusing on strategic issues that are important to Qatar and the region, and try to create digital businesses in the process of doing so. So when we talk about mobility, of course, some people thought we are just focusing on mobile phones and devices. It is more about really style of life. Mobility is really about how can we really look into platforms, services, solutions that improve the quality of life. And this is where the connection with smart cities. So over the years, I think we became probably one of the first pure play IoT enterprises in the region, given that we started looking into this 2008, 2009, when people were looking at mobile space in terms of ringtones, SMS. So over the years, we have built significant platforms and services that we deployed in Qatar, and we are in the process of creating many digital businesses optimized for the region. And this is where we are different. So we are trying to create significant assets that can really create jobs, make a difference, and create businesses. And I'm proud to say that we have many colleagues who are part of our team, who are the product of the ICT system in Qatar, that have joined us over the years, and they are contributing significantly to what we do. I think we'll talk more about more specific examples later on.
Thank you, Adnan. Fabio?
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fabio Duarte. I'm from MIT at Sensible City Lab. And there we work with smart cities. But our idea of smart cities is not a city where we can predict everything that will happen. But smartness for us is how to deal with surprises and how to stimulate surprises. I think the richness of the city in our name is very important. And city is about complexity, it's about diversity. And sensible is because we mixed the human being, how we sense, how we feel the city, and how we make sense of this complexity.
Hi, my name is Amir Mdanat, and I'm part of Next Gen Advisory Group, which we started back in 2007, primarily focused on developing master plans for smart cities in the region, with global exposure, of course, and working with entities such as MIT and others from around the world. And I believe that smart cities have to focus on the stakeholder experience. They have to understand how they create value and how they extract that value from the availability of technology, and then consequently drive the innovation process to make things more possible in a smarter way. And that's in a nutshell. I'm sure we can have more details on that.
Go ahead.
My name is Wayed Samman. I'm the chairman of the board of King Hussein Business Park, where you all now we're hosting you during this important day. Just a quick note, this park used to be, for the people who doesn't know the background, this used to be the headquarters of the army. And imagine in 2010 when His Majesty Sayyidina came, he said, I need to donate the closest things to my heart. Everybody knows that His Majesty is a military person. So he donated the most important thing, which is very close to his heart, to the business community of Jordan. And his mandate and his directives was at that day, we need to establish a smart business park. And we're following up the steps of His Majesty now. My idea of the smart business campus or the smart city is, I think, very simple, is to be smart in all what you do. So in all dimensions of life, you have to be smart in order to be called a smart city or a smart campus. So you have to be smart in connection. So you have to be connected all the time at very high speed internet, telephones, whatever mode of connections. You have to be smart in economy. You have to be smart in having smart people. And fortunately, Jordan has probably the best smart people in the whole region. Again, not only the people, we have to have also a smart government. And today we heard from Her Excellency, the Minister of ICT, how the government is now transitioning into a smart government where everything will be automated and will become electronic. Again, we have also to look at the infrastructure. So we have to be smart when it comes to environment, when it comes to using renewable energy, using right infrastructure, recycling water. So again, the infrastructure is important, it has to be smart. And finally, this will all help us to become or to live a smart living. So whatever you do has to be smart. Whatever you act has to be smart in order to call yourself a smart city. And probably during the course of this presentation, I will shed some lights on the actions that we have already done to transform the business park into a smart campus.
Thank you, Maya.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aranis Srinivasan from the GSMA. So the GSMA, for those of you who don't know us, we're the Global Trade Association for Mobile Phone Operators. So we have over 800 members who are mobile operators around the world who run GSM networks. So I'd just like to introduce you to a few things that mobile operators together as an industry that we have done to drive smart cities. And I don't want to get too technical, but some of these are technical enablers, but we can talk later on about the use cases they drive. So firstly, in mobile IoT, so in the area of low power wide area networks, so we all know that 2G, 3G, 4G aren't necessarily going to drive all the use cases. A lot of, say, metering, smart parking, they are only transmitting small amounts of data. Those modules are too expensive. And so what we have done is we have recently, in June, standardized 3 types of mobile IoT networks for low power wide area use cases. And so they're newly available, being tested now, be commercially available next year. Another area that we're looking around a common approach and standardization is IoT big data. So we know smart cities use case is all about mashing up data from different sources. So we're really looking at how can we make it easier to move that data, have that data more consistent, and being able to access that data, say, by developers through common APIs. Another focus area for us is security. So we have also released IoT security guidelines, as well as a self-accreditation checklist. So companies can say, you know, I've tested myself against these guidelines, and in fact, I meet these criteria. And as we all know, you know, cities have different requirements, they have different cultures and so on. But we really believe a common approach is really important at a technology enabler level, because really you're looking at sort of standards that are proven, they're replicable across different cities, across different countries, and also for economies of scale. So even if you're looking at a supply chain and you've got a standardized network, it drives scale, it brings costs down, or even if you're looking at data for economies of scale, for a developer, for example, if I develop an application based on data here in Oman, and that data is shared in the same way, say in Cairo, I can simply take my application and I don't have to undertake those development costs again. So we're really looking at what can we do to underpin the smart city space.
Thank you, Rana. So it's probably, guys, no surprise that smart city means different things for different people. and look at it from the transportation, communication, energy, governing, and adult context of connectivity. Now, what I would like this session to start thinking about how what you do specifically works in the context of others or other areas. How can you communicate from the top, bottom up, and what are the challenges, some of the challenges you see when you try to implement your idea of smart cities? And for this time, I'm going to start with Amir. By the way, Amir just made his way from the airport, so he's tired, so I'm going to take advantage of him and give him the toughest question to start. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me try to just create a common understanding of what we mean when we use the term smart city. And it's not the same thing wherever you go. So when we're talking about cities or urban developments where residents live and they learn and they go to hospital and government operates and services are being run and utilities being deployed, then the stakeholder in that city or the entity adopting or wanting to develop that city, that urban development into a smarter environment, then the public sector has a very significant role to play. And within this context, the technology, the pervasive adoption of technology as a broadband access or networks, that does not make you smart. That is a prerequisite that you need. But that is the utility that needs to exist. And then you can basically start getting things done. And when you start getting things done, there are multiple elements that come into play within a smart city context. You have the intelligence or the information that needs to exist so you can actually drive intelligent decision making, and that has to do with the data. And data needs to be perceived as an asset of the city, not an asset of a particular stakeholder. So you need to look at the data, you need to analyze it, you need to draw the information, the intelligence that can drive the innovation process and the decision-making process proactively. You need to use also the regulatory, you need to create the regulatory framework that can allow these different stakeholders within a city to collaborate within each other, adopt a common strategy to drive towards a common goal and achieve whatever the priorities of that city is. It could be economic development, it could be enhancing living standards, it could be addressing a mobility issue at that city, transportation and so on, and consequently increase productivity and so on. So what I want to say in a nutshell, we have to understand that smart real estate development has its specific application in terms of how we develop the master plan for real estate development, both to address the real estate business case, but also to create intelligence and enhance the business environment. And when we're talking about cities, it's much more holistic than that. In both cases, it has to be centric on the stakeholder experience. So we have to understand who the users are, what they need. And the only way to do this is to create a collaborative process whereby the end users actually contribute to the innovation, the service innovation cycle. At the same time, you need to make sure as an owner of that smart development that you have the technology in place that is capable of providing and innovating on these services. So multiple dimensions come into play. I think that's in a nutshell the umbrella I would like to shape the discussion when it comes to smart city master planning, if you wish.
Thank you, Ahmed. Transportation, so transportation, again, this is one of the areas where cities struggle with. I'm from Chicago. If anybody comes to Chicago, you know how traffic is a problem, little problem, if you have a couple of extra hours in the morning. Pollution, which is something that everybody's struggling with, and emerging new technologies, which is, for example, driverless cars or the cab sharing and so on. And then what do you think, what is the experience, and I know you're in Qatar, you're trying to do from the ground up, what can you share with us from your experience?
I think smart cities eventually is really about collecting a lot of data and translating that into personalized and useful information and services. But that's easier said than done. Because to do that, it means you have to have a lot of data to collect. You need to have platforms that can translate that data into information. You have to build applications and services. And you need to deliver these and customize them based on who is going to be the user. And when we talk about users here, we have three categories of users. Us as consumers, our requirements and needs are different. Enterprises who have their own requirements, and governments and planners whose interest is completely different. Along these lines, almost 3-4 years ago, we launched an initiative called Smart Living Framework, whereby we tried to put that concept into practice. And what we did, we spent almost 3-4 years building a very sophisticated and intelligent platform that can collect data from multiple sources. So we have a multi-data framework where we can fuse this data, and we created really a very significant mobility data bank for the whole of Qatar based on the data network that we have. That gave you a ton of data that can be used to create a lot of applications and services. Within how can you understand the traffic, how can you understand road accidents, how can you provide tools and analytics for planners, and how can you start thinking about many emerging technologies that the whole world started working on. For example, the concept of insurance is changing around the world. So how you pay for your insurance is going to be based on your driving behavior. So how can you collect that data and build the right business model applications to deliver on that? So that framework, we called it Masarak. So this is part of really how can we create significant platforms, applications, which a local community can relate to and understand. And once you follow a platform-centric framework similar to what we have done, and you have all these pieces in place, you start building a ton of applications and services that you can do yourself, or you can open a domain for third parties to build these applications and services. Another quick example is the concept of automated driving and connected driving, something called CAV, or connected and automated driving. This is something that we sense it's coming, it's going to be big back in 2010. So we started working on an initiative called Connected Vehicles, whereby we started working, contributing to shaping the standards even in ITSI. How will this work? And back in 2014, we connected the Qatar Science and Technology Park with road sensors, and we had a couple of cars where we conducted the first field demo of standard-based connected vehicle technology in the Middle East and North Africa. We did that in Qatar with 5, 6, 7 applications. And next year we plan to do a field pilot in the country where we have about probably 50 cars, or maybe 100 cars, as well as 20 or 30 roadside units to test really behavior, to build applications and services, to understand how can this work. And more importantly, our ambition is really to contribute to improving road safety, traffic mobility, operations, and create an industry in this area. So all of these fit within what we call IoT, because all of this is really about data, translating the...
Yeah, and I can bet that Aruna wants to talk about IoT. Just before transition, Fabio, I know you just mentioned during lunch that MIT has an experiment, we call it with Uber, about the same topic, which is how to manage big traffic. Can you share with us a little bit?
So we had a very interesting example about transportation. So everyone who goes to New York can see 20,000 yellow taxis there, but it's very hard to get a taxi. So before the city of New York launched all this data open online, they gave us 170 million rides. So we had all this data and we had to figure out what to do with that. And then mapping all this data, we knew that if any rider could wait for 4 minutes, 80% of all rides in New York could be shared. If any rider could wait 2 minutes, 40% of all rides. So with this amount of data, we had 2 very good results. The first one was that the city of New York started using our data, 2012, to understand traffic behavior in the city of New York, but also Uber called us and said, okay, you know, we have this ride-sharing mobility, now we are launching Uber Pool. So I think this is an example how we can get data that is available there, but nobody is using because it's kind of old data, it's text, it's not fancy, but you can get it's kind of old data and give another perspective of it and get good results.
So, Verna, big data, Internet of Things, connectivity.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what you think.
Obviously, the mobile network is an incredible source of data for being able to track, be it people or things, obviously within the guidelines of privacy and so on. And many operators are already doing this around the world. For example, StarHub in Singapore, AT&T have a connected corridors project in Los Angeles. And so really, the mobile network really allows you to understand where people, in the morning commute, where people are starting from, where they're going to. You can tell by looking at the speed they're traveling. Are they on a bus? Are they on a train? Are they walking? So it really allows you to understand the movements across your city, be that for public transport, be that for planning roads. There's an example in Korea, in Seoul, for example, they were seeing how people move in the evenings, so sort of past midnight, so they could find the right location for the night bus stops, so people were more safe and they weren't having to walk too far. So there's some great examples out there, and just another one actually I'll touch on as well is in Barcelona with Orange Spain. They're looking at the mobile network data, but also adding IoT sensors to it. So a particular problem, or could be a positive thing, they face is they have a lot of tourists in Barcelona and really managing those crowds. So in around La Sagrada Familia, which is the most famous tourist attraction in Barcelona, they're looking at the mobile network data, but they've also put IoT sensors out there so they can see how are people arriving to the site and so on. And because of that, they've been able to move the ticket booths, so they're selling more tickets and removing the crowds. So, the mobile network itself, as well as the IoT sensors you can add on top of that, really gives you a good sense of what's happening in your city, and you can really build a lot of intelligence and really make some changes, test if they work and so on, and really, drive the efficiencies as well as improve business that way.
Thank you. So Moyed, we are talking, and you have your campus that hosts all these tech companies.
Probably everybody's talking about large cities.
Yes.
If we zoom in.
This is Moyed's surprise, by the way.
Applications, by the way.
He told me I have a surprise. It's his personal drone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're filming a video about the business park, and we're using again smart drones to do the filming. So we're just showing you some of the applications that we're currently using in the business park. The drones for filmings. And hopefully within a couple of days you're going to see it on the social media. So please be patient with us. 2 days, you're going to see one on the social media, another one on our website.
And Moyed, I know you have, in the past few years, we've been talking about ambitious goals for making this smart campus, zero emission. Is there some initiative that you're working on here that can help as a pilot for the city of Amman to use those technologies?
In fact, Saeed, everybody was talking about smart cities, and probably I first started with talking about larger cities where all applications has to be smart. But if we narrow down or we zoom in into specific projects, again, you can have smart houses, you can have smart complexes, you can have smart companies. So the same concept applies. From my own experience, I think the three major components of a smart campus is first structure. You have to have the right organization in place. When we talk about the business park or smart business park, where we're promoting business ventures and we're inviting large companies to come over and be part of this complex, so we have to look into the structure or the organization. As you mentioned, going top down. So the structure is very much important. Having a smart business park, you have to have the smart companies, the large companies, which we have. We have, the largest ICT companies in Jordan are located within the business park. To name a few, Microsoft, Samsung, Buyers, most of the larger companies are within the business park. Second, you have to have, probably people don't really understand that or they underestimate, you have to have a business incubator somehow. And this is a major component of any business structure. Because again, you need these people to nurture within this nice campus and to deal with the larger organizations. This will give the motives for these smaller organizations to become big. And again, this will help the larger organization to make use of the smaller organizations. So we started the project 2 years ago. We called it GROW, and hopefully speaking, all the telecom companies are participating in that event, and they're doing great. We have now over 70 startup companies that are located very close to here. They're interacting with each other, and they're interacting with the larger companies. This is number two. Number three, which is extremely important, having a university. I think having a university within such a structure or within such a park is very much important, and it complements the ecosystem that we're trying to build. So now, within a year time, we're going to have Prince Hussein Technical University, which will be devoted for technical training and technical education and vocational education, which again will complement what the larger companies as well as the smaller companies are working on. The final one, probably in the US, they don't like to call it ecosystem, but in Jordan is now, everybody's call it now ecosystem. You have to have the ecosystem around you present. You have to have entertainments, you have to have a gym, you have to have a hotel, you have to have restaurants, which we are trying to build now. So I would say within a year time, we're going to have a complete system, a complete structure that will help any company to grow up, or even if it is in good shape, to better perform. So the major part is the structure. Once you have the organization in place, once you have the structure in place, you have the major components of the ecosystem or of the smart city. The other one, probably when you get into a city, it's good to feel that it's a smart city. So there is the visible type of smart applications where, again, we're trying to implement. We have now we have an issue with transportation because, as I said in the beginning, it used to be, or it was supposed to be the headquarters of the army, so we had no parking, so we have to look into smart solutions. One of the smart solutions is using electric cars. Other smart solutions use shuttle buses. The other one is to use bicycles. Again, the bicycles that you can see in the park are also mobile enabled, so you can get your mobile, you can plug it in, plug it off, whatever, through using a mobile application. And very soon, and this is good news for the people or our tenants in the business park, we're going to have a smart visitor management system where everybody can get into the park using his mobile. He can show the mobile to the gate and the gate will open automatically without the need going back to the guards and the security and putting your names and we forgot your names or your names was not spelled right. So in a 2 months time, hopefully beginning of next year, we're going to have a very smart management system that everybody can see. Again, we're also working on a smart system for the parking, where you can direct you where is the park, where is your park, where you are allowed to park, where you're not allowed to park. Again, this is in the making. And the third one, which is not visible to the people, they cannot see it, but it's very much important for the performance of the business park itself, which is the environment and using the renewable energy, the grey water, recycling, all sort of energy conservations that, again, will boost the performance of the business park. Now we're working with a couple of companies on our renewable energy project, and very soon we're going to sign with 2 companies. One of them will be using gas technology in order to provide us with the base load for the electricity, and the peak will be covered by solar. So again, within 6 months' time, we'll be completely independent of the grid. However, we'll still be connected to the grid because of the regulations. But within 6 months' time, 8 months' time, we will be able to operate completely off the grid. So these are the basic things that we're working on. In the future, we're also considering building management systems and other systems that can make us more sustainable.
Thank you, Moyed. So this is the session where the part of the session where I'm going to ask you the tough question, which is the $1 million question. And we talked about that during lunch. So if I ask you to give me a recommendation, you probably write a book about what you recommend smart cities, which is fine. But I'm going to ask you, if you have one thing to recommend, for example, but most importantly, one thing to recommend people not to do. And this is where a lot of people make mistakes, try to reinvent the wheel, not learn from others' mistake. So if you're going to leave the audience, if we're going to write a paper, which we're going to do recommendation to people who are doing smart city planning for city of Amman or cities in Jordan, just name one thing, you tell them, do not do that. You can leapfrog it, you can avoid the pitfalls and the mistakes that others did. And then again, we're going to start with you.
There's no answer, but don't go from zero to hero. So try to do things gradually. I think it's really about user centricity, because smart city is really about improving the quality of life. So it's really about user centricity. It's really about experimentation and piloting and staged implementation. And the third one, which is very important, that in the region we usually overlook, is the system level view. Because sometimes when we try to solve a problem, we only look at really a small part of the solution. We don't look at the end-to-end implications of that solution. I know.
Small steps?
Small steps, I think it's extremely important because everything that we talked about, frankly speaking, it's still complicated. Even the whole world still struggling to understand which makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So you have to experiment and pilot and really think about the user, really be at the center of what we are trying to do.
Fabio.
So I think that what not to do, which is quite difficult, but it's, I think, do not try to predict everything that you think you're going to happen because you failed. American election is here to prove us. And this is because we would eventually take human out of the equation because we are, as human, unpredictable. So keep us there. And the last one is also related to that. Do not try to be very serious when you are thinking of smart cities, because smartness is about humor, is about surprise, about serendipity. So keep that surprise component there.
Keep it human.
I think by the time you go through all of the not to dos on the panel, you will end up doing nothing.
Hey, I have faith in Moyed and Urna.
But so I would have a recommendation and two recommendations: one not to do something and one to do something. The first recommendation is not to think of a smart city or a smart real estate development as a technology-driven project, and not to go with a siloed approach. The reason for that is that, first of all, it's not about technology. Technology is the underlying enabler for you to become smart and to optimize the interaction, the experience between the end user and the real estate development or the city. That's the first recommendation of what not to do. And the recommendation of what to do is to think holistically, build a master plan, understand what is it that you want to achieve, what value do you want to create, and then translate that into an operating model, a technology strategy, an architecture, a governance model, and a regulatory framework. Maintain the focus on the stakeholder experience, the kind of engagement that you want to create, the experience that you want to create, and then utilize the available tools, whether it's data or infrastructure or facilities management or energy, whatever it may, or security, physical security. Utilize the technology available for you to make that experience real. But do not operate without having a very clear vision on what your priorities are and building a master plan that can enable this to happen.
And probably I was going to say the same, but differently. You have the system and you have the technology. So you don't jump into technology because otherwise you're going to lose focus. So you have to have the whole system in place. You have to have the whole strategic views in place, and then you start automation because of two issues. The first one is you don't want to lose focus. The other one, you need to maintain compatibility between the systems. Probably you might go and do a system that works on its own very well, but when it comes to other systems that you need to connect with, it will not be compatible with each other. So build your system, make sure that this is exactly what you want, and then you start using technology or you start automating it.
Okay, I'll say as a company who's wanting to engage your city or your local government for smart cities is very much take a partnership rather than approach them as a customer, because from what we've seen, cities do want to experiment. They'll want to have a proof of concept and a trial, and it will take some upfront investment to really get the trust and prove it works, because there's going to be no government or city rollout of anything until you can prove it works. And so really take that partnership, build the relationship, I'd say firstly. Secondly, with a nod to my technology team, always use standardized technologies where possible, but I absolutely agree, nothing should ever be technology driven. It should be about identifying, what your pain points are, but also, as a fellow panelist said earlier, you'll discover a lot of things, particularly in big data, that you didn't know before. So where you end up and the findings you have, are not necessarily what you thought they were going to be. So you have to be a bit flexible as well.
Thank you. So I think we're on track to leave ahead of time, but we're going to open it for a few questions from the audience. Do me a favor, when you ask a question, just introduce yourself and your organization, and please make it a question if you can. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. For Mr. Duarte, my name is Glenn Gilmore. I'm an instructor at Rutgers University in the United States. I was curious, you mentioned that smart cities isn't just about predicting behaviors, it's also about dealing with surprises. And by that, are you talking about aberrations from modeling and or us just being human?
I think it's sometimes we do find some surprise in models, but I think also we can stimulate humans behave differently, and then we learn from that. I will give you a very interesting, perhaps, example. So we had a project in the city of Copenhagen, and obviously there everybody bikes. So what we did, we built a bike, an electric bike. But actually, we put several sensors in the rear wheel, and these sensors were collecting air quality data, very scientific. But then it was also collecting sound, initially for traffic purposes. But then we realized that this kind of sound map of the city of Copenhagen, they were also showing to people where it was more fun to be than not, because they could hear what was going on. So for the city of Copenhagen, it had a very practical component, but also a very unexpected component. And I think the success of this project, the media success of this project at least, came from these unexpected results that we got. So I think when we deal with this kind of technology, if we could leave some room for this kind of surprise and do not think that they are mistakes or failures, but how we can learn from there, that's what we try to do.
Please, Amr, you want to elaborate?
There's the other element of surprise. The other element of surprise that happens if you look at global implementations of smart cities is actually developing services to deal with these surprises or disasters, because they're unexpected. This is the nature of how life is. And being smart is basically building the intelligence to be able to react to these situations in an intelligent way to achieve the end result. So whilst I'm very keen to always be connected with what is happening in academia, there's also another spin to it, which is real life. Real life is unpredictable. You need to react as a city. You need to react to a fire or a breakout or a terrorist attack or a security threat proactively, and you need to have the systems integrated in the back end whereby you can contain that disaster. Japan has very good implementations in that. If you look at the model, the smart city platform that is being built today in Dubai, as a matter of fact, with the open data and the smart city council that is happening, the 3D model that they are building in the city, that you're getting real-time access to events that are happening sporadically and randomly around the city, where the city actually needs to react very quickly to them. So there's that real-life element also, beyond trying to build an algorithm or a model to be able to predict everything. And I agree with my colleague on the panel. You will never be able to predict everything that happens because it is random by nature.
Thank you. The young woman there, you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Ruba Darwish from BNB. So I have two questions actually. The first question is, we talk about smart cities, but it's much easier to implement a smart city in Dubai because it's new, it's easier. How do you foresee challenges when you want to build a smart city that has been there for some time? And the second question is regarding telecommunication. We face a lot of challenges regarding regulatory aspect. So also, how do you see that from your perspective?
So Aruna, do you want to, I think you had some experience in the Far East that you talked about similar to this.
Well, actually, I just would like to touch on the first question, which is around the aging infrastructure and so on. And so I really think, obviously there are different situations. A greenfield city to, many cities around the world have infrastructure, 100 years old. And I really think IoT and these new technologies can help you manage those as well. So one example I'd bring up is actually in the US, in Las Vegas. So the Las Vegas water management, they have the water pipes under the strip, actually are decades old, I think about 80 years old off the top of my head, and lose a lot of water in a very arid environment. And what they've actually done is hook up fairly cheap, low-cost sensors to next to the water pipes. So rather than having to dig everything up and relay the pipes, which is very, very costly, put in these rather cheaper sensors where you can, and they're acoustic sensors, so they listen to the sound, and helping them manage and detect where there's water leakage. And through that, they've been really able to make the most of their aging infrastructure. So we need to be a bit creative as well, rather than sort of replacing everything in sight. How can we use these new technologies alongside the existing infrastructure, because they are different challenges.
Thank you. Please.
I think when we talk about smart cities, we don't need to think about very complicated and sophisticated implementation. If you want to do it from top-down approach and have really a master strategy to do that, that's fine. But you can introduce lots of simple services using smart city concepts. For example, I think one of the most common services that we implemented in Qatar, and it's available all around the world, is how do I know where parking is available and the real-time availability of parking information. Because one of the biggest problems that cause congestion, I think if you look at statistics, about 30% of congestion is caused by people looking for parking. Because people don't know the parking availability. And this can be a very simple thing to do. Simple in technical terms, but maybe more complicated from really partnerships or relationship viewpoint. Another example is really access to air quality, environmental information on a location-based basis. This does not require a sophisticated, really, infrastructure to do, but it requires a framework and a model that need to be implemented. But we need to think about lots of simple, easy-to-use services which can be implemented, even if you don't have a top-down strategy to make Amman or Dubai or Doha a smart city. Because I totally agree, maybe the biggest advantage if you think of top-down approach and integrated approach, but frankly speaking, that's the most complicated thing to do. Sometimes it's much easier to do vertically oriented implementations and try to think of a federation system where it can federated data to be exchanged by people who need to have access to it. So we have to think about simplicity versus value. So the most complicated things, not necessarily the best ones to do.
Right. And probably, the ability of the people to use technology, because smart cities, it depends on the regulators, and also it depends on the people using the technology and the interface. So we had an issue, when we started our visitor management system, it was mobile enabled. So some of the companies objected, especially in a business park where everybody should be very much IT educated. They don't have smartphones. So imagine if some people, until now, they don't have smartphones within an ICT business complex. How would that be translated into the ordinary person who might have no access to internet or might have no access to mobiles? So I think also it's very much important to look at the user part and having a user-friendly interface that will facilitate the connection or the interaction between the user and the government or the city or whatever.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Manar Al-Kayed. My question for Mr. Muayyad. Do you think that the regulation in Jordan is flexible enough to reach to smart cities?
I think we still need to work on it, and I think this government, from what I hear and from what we heard probably a couple of days ago, during the parliament session, I think they're very much decisive, to make the change, especially with the current ICT minister. She has the background and she has the will and she has the motive to do it. So I think she has lots of work to do now, and she has now 2 cabinets. So she works on the regulatory part of view, the human resources part of view, as well as the automation part of view. So hopefully we see results within this year. Is it easy? It's not easy. Will they cover the whole aspects of the smart city? Definitely not. But at least in the beginning I mentioned about 6 components of the smart city, one of which is the government. So I think if we succeed with the government, I think the rest would be much easier. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And let's thank our panelists, distinguished. And we saved 10-15 minutes to allow you guys to enjoy the last session. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for our moderator and our panelists as well. Thank you so much. Okay, so we steadily move on. We move on now to our next session. Our next session now